Hey, good afternoon, guys. How you guys doing? Let me throw up the actual stream chat. Here we go. Okay, cool. Good afternoon. Hope you guys are well. I mean, this Army List show this week is going to have a little difference, I guess, because things have changed. Obviously, things have changed. Chapter approved 2021 is out, I guess. I got them here. If anyone wants to ask any questions or if we need to double check any information on them. So, chapter approved, and then they've split it into sort of two books, and the Grand Tournament, book 2021, and chapter approved really just has points costs, right? There's nothing in this book at all except points costs, and the leaks that we came out with last week were pretty accurate, right? All the points costs that changed are pretty much what they say in the book, so we'll dive into those as well. And I'm planning on doing another stream later this week to talk about army leaks, etc. But thanks for being here, guys. I see a lot of you hanging out in the chat already. Steel Rain, Casual Gamer, Adam, Mick, Robert, Benjamin, Gitley, who have I missed? Matt, and I actually, right as the stream was ending last night, someone asked me to show my Redemptor Dreadnought, and I was like tired. Are the Forge World points in the chapter approved book? Do you know what? I looked for them, and I don't think that any of the Forge World... Well, the Forge World points aren't in here, Adam, so I assume that means that the Forge World points are still accurate from the Forge World book. Yeah, I mean, I had to look for them briefly, but yeah, I couldn't see them unless I just completely glazed over that section. But no, I don't think the Forge World points have changed, as far as I'm aware, anyway. Yeah, so someone asked me to see my Redemptor last night, and I said, yeah, sure, I'll do it in a minute, and then I just logged off and went to bed. So I did post a photo of the Redemptor in the Facebook group, but if you were in the stream today, ask me, and I will show it this time, so sorry about that. Good morning from Canada, says T-Money. The 2020 version of the Spiral Bandle and an elasticated page marker. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I like the fact that they've broken it into 2 books. I mean, I guess it makes the one book you have to carry around all the time a little bit smaller, but like, the number of changes in the actual smaller book are like 0 to none. Like, I think maybe one of the secondaries changed in one of the missions, but apart from that, it feels like there is no change. How do we feel about the Whirlwind after the latest FAQ? Is it still an auto take or not? I kind of think it still is an auto take. I still think it's important to be able to make sure that you fight before the enemy, or at least give yourself the opportunity to fight before the enemy. Does anyone know if my army is 2 CP detachments? Can I have 2 warlords? No, you can't have 2 warlords. Didn't take a whirlwind before, not taking it now, says Gitley. I mean, yeah, I mean, there's other ways you can deal with the ability to fight last, I guess. But I think it's very, very, it helps me win a lot of games, the whirlwind, and I don't think that the changes they made to it stop it from being able to help you win games, right? It still means that you can potentially, if you know the opponent's going to charge you with a specific unit, you can suppression fire them, and then it means that you will fight before that unit. Whereas, like, with counter-offensive, you would pay an extra CP and you can't guarantee that you would get to fight first, right? Because if it's only one charge. So I think based on that, it's still worth it. And the fact that the Whirlwind can... The 72-inch range of the Whirlwind means it can sit obscured in the corner of the board and do that to any enemy unit that you want. And also, I mean, on a lesser degree, it shuts out Overwatch as well. So that can be useful as well against, I don't know, like a squad of 20 Necron Warriors or Iron Hands. I don't know if Iron Hands have changed, but I know before the Leviathan Dreadnought got nerfed, Iron Hands could hit Overwatches on 4s, and Andrew used to run his Leviathan with twin Storm Cannon and like the twin Flamer, so if you wanted to charge the Leviathan, he was going to shoot like, 16 Storm Cannon shots and 8 Volkite shots, all potentially doing 2 damage and hitting on 4s. And it cost him a few CP to do it, but I mean, it almost made his Leviathans unchargeable by infantry, or didn't make them unchargeable, but you almost needed to sacrifice something against the Overwatch. So I'm sure there's other things that can do really nasty Overwatch as well, and I mean, Tau are going to get buffs at some point soon as well, right? So I guess Tau, being able to stop Overwatch against Tau may be very, very important as well. Yeah, doing it from a good distance away probably makes worth thinking about it now. Yeah, I mean, the Whirlwind, 72 inches, if you park it in one corner of the board, it pretty much hits the entire board. So, okay. So yeah, I mean, welcome to the stream anyway, and if anyone wants to submit a list for a future stream, I show you guys how to do that real quick. You just head over to the Blood Angels Commander channel page, you hit over onto the community tab, and in the latest community tab, just post up your list into the comment section here, and we'll add it for a future review. And we got 5 lists as always to do today. Let me quickly bring them up. The lists for today are can't find the folder. Lists. Matt, Rezio, Paul C, Sonorin, and I have no idea how to say your name, bro. I struggle with English, so there's absolutely no way I'm going to be able to pronounce Russian. But okay, so we'll start on Matt's list. We usually start with the members list, so let's start there. Matt Ground, and I guess these lists will have been submitted before the points changes came out, in that the points changes only came out yesterday. So we may need to just talk a little bit about changes to points and what maybe needs to change in the lists. I bought a Forge World Contemptor, couple of beers, and it's looking so shiny. The Forge World Contemptors are very cool. We shall call him Pavel. Okay, we shall call him Pavel like that. Is Battlescribe updated yet? I actually don't know. I built my current list in a notepad file or an Excel file. So let's check out Matt's list to start with. And hey, Bloody Angels Commander, I got a new list for you to look at if you would. Added the Redemptor and Scepters. Do you know what? I'm going to do a video this week, I think, on comparing Inceptors now that the plasmas have gone up to 60 points per model. So I guess 60 points per model on the plasmas means you would be able to get only 40 points per model on the bolter version. It's going to be pretty interesting, I guess. Like, unfortunately, there isn't a way where 40 and 60 multiply into the squad size, but I'm sure we can do some sort of math and work it out. Cool. Let's see why I can't afford things now and they cost a lot more. So this is Matt. All right, Matt. Yeah, we'll try and give you some suggestions on how we make this work. I'm thinking the company vets will bodyguard the Librarian Dreadnought and get in the enemy's faces, while the Death Company do what they do best. Terminator stuff can deep strike or move up slowly. Hope the relics, etc. make sense after the changes made from the input on my last list. Okay, so company veterans, and I don't think anything changed with the cost of company veterans. We have one with a melta gun and a thunderhammer. We have one with a chainsword and a thunderhammer, one with a chainsword and infernal pistol, and we have the sergeant with a chainsword and combi melta. I mean, it's kind of an expensive veteran squad, but I mean, and I guess that the enemy are going to have to shoot them, right? So maybe it would be nice, like, if one of these guys had a storm shield, so if you get shot with something nasty, you could take it on the storm shield. But I guess let's put a pin in that and move forward. So we have a captain in Terminator armor. He's got a mastercrafted weapon, which I assume will be a mastercrafted thunderhammer. He has the Angel Exemplar, so he has Imperium sword. And he is the Warlord. I'm not sure why you wouldn't give him Gift of Foresight. I feel like that would be stronger. Does this guy have a... Yeah, I feel like Gift of Foresight would be stronger, right? Because Imperium Sword is going to give you +1 attack, and I guess +1 strength, so your Thunderhammer is going to be strength 9, but Gift of Foresight is going to let you reroll 1 failed hit, and you're going to get failed hits, right? Because you have because you've got -1 to hit because it's a Thunderhammer, so you're guaranteed with the number of attacks. I think a captain in Terminator armor gets 4 attacks, right? So 5 in the charge, 6 with Savage Echoes. You're going to get a couple of 1s and 2s when he charges, so you're going to get to reroll 1 of them. You're probably going to end up with like 1 failed wound as well, so you're probably going to get to reroll that as well. So I'd probably say Gift of Foresight is going to be stronger on this captain than Imperium Sword, but maybe there's a play there that I'm not seeing. But I think Gift of Foresight is arguably one of the strongest Warlord traits in the game right now. I actually think it's super amazing, so maybe just consider that. A Librarian Dreadnought with Quickening. Has Speed of the Primarch, Unleash Rage, and Wings of Sanguinius. And I like to run the Librarian Dreadnought with Iron Resolve because I think it makes him a lot stronger. But Speed of the Primarch has just been buffed essentially because Speed of the Primarch puts him in that first fight bracket. So that's kind of interesting. The fight first bracket, if you're not aware, means that when the opponent charges you, if they charge you, let's say, with 2 units, they would be able to fight with 1 unit, then your librarian would be able to fight. So you'd actually be able to basically get a free interrupt during the sort of phase where normally the opponent gets to fight with all their charged units. So it's kind of like a free counter-offensive on your librarian dreadnought. So that's kind of cool. I mean, if you're expecting them to be charged, that's certainly something to consider. I suppose it depends, though, right? If you have been protected by a bunch of veterans and you've got wings on them and quickening to reroll charges, then potentially you're not going to need. Oh, does Imperium Sword give you the ability to reroll charge? I forget that. I don't run Imperium Sword enough. Do you know what? If it does, then I basically ran that Death Company captain in an army list that won 11 games in a row and I never rerolled the charge once for having Imperium Sword. I just used the +1 attacks and +1 strength. Wow. I am an idiot. Is that... I was going to say, I'm glad you pointed that out, but I guess it doesn't really matter. That list has been retired with 11 wins, 0 losses. Where the hell are the Warlord traits? Imperium Sword. Oh yeah, you can reroll charges. Okay. Alright, then I guess Imperium Sword reroll charges for the Terminator arriving in Deep Strike. Whoops. That's funny though. I mean, I feel like I must have failed a charge within those 11 games. And no one pointed that out for me. But yeah, that happens, I guess. Okay, so yeah, Imperium Sword maybe, I guess, because it's a Terminator captain. If he wasn't a Terminator captain, or if you're not planning on deep striking him and getting a turn like that charge off straight away, then I think Gift of Foresight is stronger. Yeah, and I mean, I guess the same thing goes for your librarian, right? Speed of the Primarch is good now. Iron Resolve is also pretty good because he's on 8 wounds before, so Iron Resolve is the equivalent of making him on 10.5 wounds because you get 1 extra wound, which puts him on 9, and then you get 6+ Feel No Pain. And he does have to cast Psychic Powers, so there is a risk of getting Pearls of the Warp, so it does give you a chance to negate some Pearls damage. But I think Speed of the Primarch is probably a good pick now. I seriously think Speed of the Primarch is now a high-tier Warlord trait. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely better than it was. If this was last edition, or if this was a week ago, before they changed those fight first rules, I would be pushing you towards Iron Resolve. Now I'm okay with Speed of the Primarch. Does it mean I would change my one to have Speed of the Primarch? I don't know. I think personally I still prefer Iron Resolve just a little bit, because I always go of the opinion that like if your units are dead... if your units are not dead, then they can always do stuff, right? And I guess Iron Resolve helps make my units not dead. Right. Then we have a squad of infiltrators, and then we have a large squad of... There's nothing to say about infiltrators. They're great. They're core almost. The aerial denial can be very important. We have a squad of Terminators and an assault squad. So Thunderhammers and Storm Shields all round. On the Sergeant and 2 guys, and then 2 with double Lightning Claws. And that's fine. That's a good Terminator squad. A survivable. And I kind of like mixing them. I think a mix gives you a bit more versatility with the Terminators, and also it gives you the option to take the wounds where you want it, right? So take the saves on the Storm Shield or take the saves on the Lightning Claw guys. So I think this is a good, solid Terminator squad. As we move... the first attachment is how many points? 739. Cool. The second attachment is 1259 points. We start with the Librarian Terminator Armor, who is Veil of Time, Null Zone, Combi Melt of Forestaff, and Tomb of Malkador. Why? You're missing a power if you've got the Tomb of Malkador, right? Because he's allowed 2 powers by default. So there's another power that this HQ can have. Yeah, I mean, it helps make you not dead. Iron Resolve, yeah. And I feel like the Librarian Dreadnought gets targeted a lot because people know he has a lot of damage. People know he does a lot of damage in melee. I like to run my Librarian Dreadnought with a Meltagun. I'm not sure what you have on yours. Yeah, a Meltagun as well. So, like, up close, the Librarian Dreadnought is going to be doing damage, so he's going to be targeted, and as much as your veterans want to help him survive, at some point he'll probably end up away from the veterans because he can fly and the veterans can't. So I guess the question, do you know what? Play Speed of the Primarch, dude. See how you get on with it, because obviously it's a lot better now. But if you're finding he dies too much, then I guess I would consider dropping it. So I would take Psychic Fortress or Might of Heroes for your Librarian here. Psychic Fortress, I think, provides a lot of value it depends if you have a castle style deployment, right? Like if you're gonna have that Librarian somewhere where there's a lot of other units around him, then Psychic Fortress provides mad value. However, if you're not gonna do that, then take something like Might of Heroes, and you can use Might of Heroes on your other Librarian, the Librarian Dreadnought, and that's what I did in my battle report against Sisters last week. Basically gave my Librarian Dreadnought +1 strength, +1 attack, +1 toughness, so it moves him up to toughness 8. And toughness 8 helps a lot against like the current meta of a lot of Meltaguns, right? And multi-meltas. Making him toughness 8 is like making him like 15-16% more survivable against Meltafire. So either Psychic Fortress, making other units like Death Company and Sanguinary Guard and that more survivable with Invulnerable Save, or Might of Heroes to make your Librarian Dreadnought more survivable. So you've got the Sanguinary Priest in here, who's the chief apothecary, and he has the armor Indomitus, which, I mean, he should never really be in combat, so you could argue he doesn't need the armor, but if the enemy do manage to get on top of him, it's nice to have it's nice to have the armor Indomitus. I guess the question now is, they've gone up 20 points, right? So we need to find 20 points somewhere else to make this list work. I mean, maybe one of these squads of infiltrators could be in cursors, and you could use the infiltrators defensively and then cursors a little bit more aggressively, and that might free up 15 points, and then we're only 5 points away. Librarian Dreadnought needs Iron Resolve and Shield of Sanguinius to be really good. I'm not sure he needs the shield, but I mean, I can understand why you think he needs the shield. I have had okay success running him with just Quickening and Wings and Iron Resolve. I think, like, I've had a lot of battles where he's been alive at the end with just Quickening and Iron Resolve. He doesn't have a ton of health points left, but he is surprising. The Librarian Dreadnought can take Space Marine Warlord traits. I mean, there's no requirement on him not being allowed a Space Marine Warlord trait. That's a valid play. Alright, we then have a Death Company with 1 Thunderhammer and the rest Bolt Pistol and Chainswords, and this is fine. 140 points makes sense. If this was just before the patch, I'd be telling you that Lightning Claw Vanguard Veterans pretty much do the same amount of work for 10 points cheaper, but I mean, the Death Company are actually going to be a little bit cheaper now. We have a Redemptor Dreadnought with the Stormbolters, the Macro, and the Onslaught. We have Vanguard Veterans, and I guess these guys are going to get more expensive. Almost. I think it's going to be 2 points per model, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think you're going to be 19 more points for this squad. It may end up being that maybe the best way to get this list to work is to drop a single Vanguard veteran. And the one thing that this extra claw on your sergeant doesn't actually do that much damage if you think about it, right? Like, what's your sergeant normally get? Like 5 attacks? 3 attacks. 4 attacks from charging, 5 attacks from Savage Echo, 6 attacks. So the second claw on your sergeant gets you 1 additional attack, which really boosts his DPS by, let's say, like 15%. I would much rather see like an Infernal Pistol on the sergeant, because a squad like this with this many Storm Shields, there's no way the enemy are killing that in a single turn, probably. I mean, maybe if they overwhelm you with a shed load of attacks, they're killing you. But this many Vanguard veterans with this many storm shields, that's going to cause like a big commitment from the enemy, and the chances are you're still going to have a few models alive. If you have a few models alive, having that Infernal Pistol and the Sergeant, if you're in melee combat, is really handy. And I know it's I guess it's a 66% chance to make a hit roll with that pistol, but when you do make a hit roll, you do end up doing a lot of damage. So I guess you've got that to consider. We then have Inceptors, and it's a 3-man squad, and I guess these guys have gone up 15 points because the plasmas, for some reason now, they've made them crazy expensive. But I'm confused, right? Someone in the chat maybe help me out. Inceptors, were they 45 points per model before, and each plasma was 5 points? Is that right? And now they've changed the base Inceptors to just 40 points, and each plasma is 10 points. Rezio, you were running a lot of Inceptors. When did they increase the points of Inceptors? It was in the Space Marine FAQ from... Inceptors had gone up to 45 points in a previous change. Yes, so they'd gone up in the Space Marine FAQ. Is that right? Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, so they'd gone... So are they... So is this a typo, or do you think they've taken them back down to 40? Because I'm confused. Like, does this... No, because there's no way there's 65 points per model for the Plasma Inceptors. This bit should probably really be deleted from this FAQ, right? Okay, so Hurricane Bolter they're not Hurricane Bolters, I forget what they're called. They're called Assault Bolters, right? Strength 5, -1 damage, 3 shots per bolter, I think. So they are now 40 points per model. So yeah, we need to do a comparison on these, considering I know a lot of people run Plasma Inceptors, but I think that when we actually do the maths now, I think Plasma Inceptors will perform poorly against the Assault Bolter Inceptors. And I have a 3-man squad of Assault Bolter Inceptors that I got with Dark Imperium, so maybe I need to break them out and give them some priority. They're indeed 65 points per model for Plasma Inceptors. No, man, that can't be right. I think it's 60 points per model for Plasma Inceptors. 65, I think, is... I don't think that's right. Okay. So yeah, so I guess probably the most sensible thing in this list to get it to still work then, I guess, is to drop a single Vanguard veteran. A Vanguard veteran before was 28 points, so if you drop one, you needed 19 more points to make this squad work. It would only be 17, so you'd have like a net gain of 11 points. You need like 15 more for your Inceptors, and you need 20 more. So you're going to have to drop a Vanguard veteran, and you might need to drop a company veteran as well, actually. You're probably going to need to drop 2 models. And that's similar to what I had to do, I think. I had to drop attack bikes and pick up eradicators to free up 30 points. And I had to drop a Redemptor and pick up eradicators as well to free up another 30 points. I like the Assault Bolters quite well. No, you have to pay for both guns, right? So it's 40 plus 20, that's correct. And they don't kill themselves either. Yeah, that's correct as well. So yeah, we'll do some maths on them this week, I think, because I really want to know if Hurricane Bolters is going to be the way to go now. I don't know why I keep calling them Hurricane Bolters. Sorry, Assault Bolters. So yeah, let me just show you the chapter approved bit for Inceptors, right? So, because there's a few people questioning it in the chat, and it's here. Oh shit. Fast attack Inceptors. Here you go. Can you read that? So 40 points per model, and you need to pay 10 points per gun. So 60 points for the plasmas and just 40 points for the bolters. I think the bolters might be interesting now. I really do. So yeah, we'll do some maths against them. If there's anything you guys want to see me math out, right? Like if there's a unit that you want to see, like units that I'm thinking off the top of my head would be like Plague Marines. Maybe even something like Blightlord Terminators. They feel like targets that Inceptors normally go after. I guess Sisters of Battles, any units that you guys want to see the math, Plasma Inceptors versus Assault Bolter Inceptors, tag me out in Discord and yes, what I'm trying to say, tag me out in Discord and just tell me the unit and we'll get the math done and we'll look at that this week in the tactics video. And I think I'm going to throw my Plasma Inceptors out the window then. You know what, I had made a pretty cool conversion with Plasma Inceptors, giving them Sanguinary Guard wings and stuff, but I guess 40 toughness 5 Orc Boys. Yeah, I mean, I reckon the Assault Bolters will be pretty good against them actually as well, because they normally, the -1 will put them off, give them no save, right? Okay, so yeah, I mean, overall feelings about this list then. This list is pretty similar to the sort of thing that I run. I guess your Terminators are probably going to deep strike. The Vanguard Veterans, I imagine, probably starting the board. The Death Company can potentially deep strike. You've got the 2 Infiltrators. You've got some fire support. Maybe a little bit lighter on fire support than I generally like. But it's still fine. And then you've got 4 pretty solid HQs. It's hard to argue with these HQs. They're all solid. I'm running the Sanguinary Priest. I had been running the Librarian and Terminator Armor. I am thinking about bringing him back. I think I'm going to run the one with the jump pack one more time and then decide if I'm bringing back my Librarian and Terminator Armor. I'm obviously running the Librarian Dreadnought, and I'm running a Captain. I just have my Captain on a bike rather than in Terminator Armor. So, yeah, I mean, double patrol works. I do think that maybe... Oh, sorry, this second detachment isn't patrol, right? It's a Vanguard. Yeah, sorry. Okay, yeah, because you've got 3 elites in here. Okay. And how many CP does this list start with then? You're losing 3 in the 1 detachment, and you're using... Oh, I think Battle Scribe like you're starting with 5 CP. I think that's sort of borderline. I think 5 is the lowest CP I'm comfortable starting with. I was playing the list that I won 11 games in a row with was starting with 4, and I felt that was too little. So 5 is maybe 5 is maybe just okay. Connor says, do you think Blood Angels are a good first army? I mean, Blood Angels really, Connor, are the only good army in the game. No, I'm joking, but yeah, I mean, I think Blood Angels are a great place to start. I make a ton of content on Blood Angel stuff, so if you are looking to start, then this is a good channel to follow, I guess. I'm not actually sure how many other channels there are on YouTube that just make content about armies and tactics, because some of the other ones make videos on lore, but I mean, I do a lot more stuff on tactics and how to win games and stuff. And hey, thank you for subscribing, brother. Yeah, so this list makes a lot of sense. The one thing I don't like about... So, it's a tough one, right? Like, I have a lot of Terminators. I want to say I've got 30 of them, but I personally prefer Sanguinary Guard, and I think it's because of the mobility that they bring. Obviously, the Terminators are a lot more survivable, but you give up quite a bit of like mobility. And maybe, maybe it's fine to be a little bit less mobile with the Terminators, but be able to be more resilient. And there is something to be said about being resilient in 9th edition. Like, the game is won and lost on being resilient and holding objectives and stuff like that. So, no, I don't think you need to make a battalion, Matt. I mean, I think the double patrol or the patrol and Vanguard are stronger than a battalion right now. I don't think we need that many troops. I didn't realise your second detachment was a Vanguard detachment. I mean, I thought it was a patrol because you had this Infiltrator squad in there. So maybe the way you make this list work is you go like I go and drop the Infiltrator squad, And that gives you enough points to maybe just beef up some of these other elite units a little bit, right? Like maybe get like a 6th Terminator into this list, get like a 6th member of the Death Company or something, and then pay the extra points because the points cost have changed and stuff. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a good list. So let's give it a score. And yeah, there's not much. I mean, the one question mark now is, are Inceptors going to be overcosted at 60 points per model? I mean, I feel like they were pushing it at 55 points a model, so maybe in the future the Inceptors need to be rotated out. But if they do need to be rotated out, you know, heavy melter rifle eradicators are arguably the most damaging unit in the game. They do a ton of work, and they are only 50 points per model at the moment. So yeah, that's something to definitely consider. Okay, so let's put down some scoring, and you're starting with. Oh, I haven't written down the list names. At grounds. So the first of all, objective holding OBSEC, and we do have 2 OBSEC choices. So I'm guessing, let's say it's like an 8 for the 2 infiltrators. Infiltrators are very, very good at holding objectives, you know, just because they can't ever be deep striked against. And how are we going to deal with chaff units? I mean, we've got chainswords on Death Company, we've got a ton of lightning claws, we've got those Inceptors, the Whirlwind can do it, the Redemptor can do it. So I reckon against like anti-horde problems, you're probably pretty high up. It's probably like an 8-5. I think maybe if there was like a 2nd Redemptor in there or something, but like I don't think you need to. It's tricky. I like to run 500 points of shooting, but it is tricky to make that work in a Blood Angels list. It is a big commitment. But yeah, so I think it's like an 8-5. And then for dealing with monsters and tanks and stuff like that, I mean, we've got the Redemptor, and like something I also like to look at is like the number of 3 damage weapons that the list has. So we've got 3 damage on this Thunderhammer, we got 3 damage on the Redemptor times 2, so that gives us 3 damage weapons. This Librarian gives us 4. We've got 3 more Thunderhammers here, we've got 7. Our Librarian Dreadnought has 2, so that gives us 9, and then our Captain's 10, and then another Thunderhammer, 2 Thunderhammers, an Infernal Pistol here, and a Combi Melta. So we actually have 14 damage. 14 3 damage or more weapons. And I think when we were talking about it before, I think 10 is the minimum that I would like to see, like 10 weapons that can do at least 3 damage. So having 14 feels like a pretty good pace. And you do have ways of getting those units in with the Terminators and the Deep Strike, and they potentially can do rerolls and all sorts of shenanigans. So I'd say 9 points. Do you know what? The one thing that we talked about a few weeks ago on the channel actually was how much value Chapter Master rerolls brought to the table. And I guess the one issue with Chapter Master rerolls is you need to be on the board to make that happen. So Chapter Master probably doesn't synergize super well with Terminators and a Terminator armor because they'll be deep striking. But it is something to consider. You know, we could get more damage. If we assume that we're going to survive that first turn of Deep Strike, then potentially the Chapter Master is going to give you more value over the time, yeah? Next up is mobility, and I guess Infiltrators are a little bit less mobile because of the nerf to guerrilla tactics. Terminators are obviously a little bit less mobile than, let's say, Sanguinary Guard, but apart from that, everything else is fairly mobile. So I reckon mobility is like an 8. And then for specialization, I usually include, have you got a way to make the enemy fight last? I mean, technically here you've got 2 with Speed of the Primarch and the Whirlwind. Have you got a way to disable Overwatch? Yes. Have you got a good number of 3 damage weapons? Yes. Can your list react to all threats? I'd say yes. And then the last question I usually ask is like, do you have like 500 points of shooting? Now, you don't quite have it, because I don't really include the Whirlwind in that, because the thing about the Whirlwind is sometimes you need to use it shooting to suppress a unit, right? So you can't always target and shoot what you want to shoot with the Whirlwind. So shooting is maybe a little bit light, but overall everything else is very good. So I'm thinking specialization. I think I'd go with like a 9 there. So I think that's a very rounded list, and I think that you're going to have a little bit of trouble figuring out what you cut. And the way I see it is you've got two options. You cut the infiltrators, or you cut like a Vanguard veteran and a company veteran. I think I maybe prefer that option and keep the 2 squads of infiltrators, but the other option maybe of dropping the second squad of infiltrators and just beefing up those elite units like the Terminators, the Death Company, the Vanguard veterans is also very attractive, because those units are already very killy. So making them more killy is no bad thing at all. If you guys are enjoying today's stream at all, if you could hit the like button at some point, that would be very much appreciated. Hey Brian, thanks for tuning in. So yeah, I think that's a very good scoring list. Last week our highest score was 42.5. All right, so if we'll color you in orange at the moment, and I guess you are the gatekeeper list for this week to see. Let's see how the other lists get on. But yeah, that's not a bad list at all. I guess next up is Reziel, and I'm sure he's got something to say about it, because Reziel usually brings pretty strong lists. So it's interesting. I guess it's just going to be a little bit tricky on what you cut, but make a couple of cuts if you want. You think I'm forgetting about dealing with transports? Yeah, maybe. Maybe that's why I took up 1 point off specialization, because he doesn't quite have as much shooting as I would like. Maybe I should have taken 1.5 or 2, but maybe I'm feeling generous today. So yeah, I think there is a small tweak to be made there, Matt. And maybe what was said, like get the Infernal Pistol into that Vanguard veteran squad as well. Gives them a chance to basically pop open a transport or something. Yeah. Okay, we're going to move on to Reziel next. And I think, Reziel, correct me if I'm wrong, but you sent me a new list, so this might be updated with the new points cost. So if it is, that'll be pretty cool. Let's get into it then. This list is updated to the leaks from the big FAQ. New points update should be corrected. Added biggest change, we're taking my foot off the gas pedal and specifically countering Guattari. I subbed out some units. With the points changes needed to revise a small amount, I was able to add 3 Bolter and Scepters back in. I do have a strong inclination to go with the double Eliminators now, but we'll hold off for a bit longer. Do you know what? I've been thinking a lot about the Eliminators and what you guys were saying in the stream last night, and I actually kind of wonder if we drop the Sanguinary Priest. Because a Captain in Phobos armor is 95 points, right? Yeah, and a squad of Eliminators is 75 points. Is that right? What are Eliminators? Heavy support? Yeah, so a Captain in Phobos army and a squad of Eliminators is 170 points, and a Sanguinary Priest is 155 points. I know the Priest is good, but you could totally make that work, the Eliminators, and that gives you another place somewhere over. You just have to think about what it brings to the table, Gitley, I guess. Like, I don't know. You could potentially have a squad of Eliminators re-rolling all their ones around the Captain, and the Captain has a potentially 4 damage weapon that ignores Lookout Sir, and so you would have a pretty interesting squad of snipers. And they're all sitting on like a 1-up save, right, in cover, because they've all got their camo cloaks. And you could have a squad of Eradicators close by as well, so you could get your rerolls on one as well. So yeah, it's interesting, I guess. and eliminators hit on 2s, and they can, hitting on 2s, re-rolling 1s. I mean, I feel like you'd probably end up with like 3 or 4 hits every turn at strength 5. So surely you're doing 2 damage, 3 damage, potentially average to a character every turn. I'm on board with dropping the priest for the Tech Marine now. The 6++ is important. That's the one thing that I wouldn't like to lose, right? The 6++. But I don't think I care so much about the Assault Doctrine in the early turns. Sisters of Battle characters just melt to eliminators. I would guess any toughness 4 character would probably end up melting to eliminators, especially the fact that one of the weapons is 4 damage. The 4 damage weapon, I know once you hit them and wound them, it's a 50-50 chance, but it's a 50-50 chance to literally just kill their character from full health. So you basically get you would get a 50-50 chance in like 3 or 4 turns of the game to just kill their character from full health. I mean, to me that sounds pretty interesting. Okay, so I've created this list to handle all corners, but also some of the new meta. I'm going with double Redemptor because I know this works well. I finally moved away from the battalion. I'm going with double patrol. This gives me the 4th HQ slot I want and still allows me to keep as many CP as possible. So we start with 7. I really do need the CP to use all the strats I want, especially since I'm using the Death Company, a big Death Company unit. When I include this unit, I will Forlorn Fury every game, either for Alpha Strike or for defensive reposition to set up later. The Death Company are strong, and they're strong when they make it in, but they're primarily a psychological warfare unit. Then we have the Sanguine Guard, and they need no explanation. Most of the character support is designed to go with them. One upgrade of note is Quake Bolts on the Utility Librarian. I have found this is one of the single best spots for it since it has excellent mobility and range, and its shooting is so otherwise unused. Do you know what? That's a very good point, actually. Maybe I need to try Quake Bolts on my Jump Pack Librarian. I am running the tried and tested Bite Chapter Master, as well as you can either go with a Sanguinary Guard or not. I've decided to include a Primaris Tech Marine for several reasons. It's a great character on its own, but it helps the Redemptors or Whirlwind, and on top of that, it allows me to include a unit of Servitors for no force organisation cost. They're 30 points, action takers for Secretary, and that's about it. 1 Incursor and 1 Infiltrator unit. Used mostly as you would expect. Landspeeder is another test. It's fast, it has a multi-melta. It isn't an instant kill in most cases, and it gives the data link telemetry to my Whirlwinds. And if it lives, that's pretty great, but if it dies, it's not that too bad because the opponent had to put resources into it. Question about the Servitors, actually. So do you run them naked for 30 points? I have some Servitors, but unfortunately mine are all armed with like weapons, stuff like heavy bolters and stuff, but you can just run them without, right? What are they? Toughness 3, 4+ save, and if they're within 6 inches of a Tech Marine, they have a weapon skill and BS of 4+ otherwise, and a leadership 9, otherwise they're 5. And Servitors are just 30 naked for 30 points, and that gives you how many Servitors? Is that 4 or is that 2? And the Server armor is basically a Thunderhammer. Well, it'll be a 6 strength Thunderhammer, right? Because it'll be -1, 2. So 30 points. Yeah, do you know what? The Servitors are actually interesting. Like you said, 30 points for a decent... they only have 1 wound each, but still, they're good for performing actions, I guess. 4 dreads and a whirlwind. What dreads are you running at the moment, Tony? Okay, so Chapter Master, I was going to say Chaptain. Chaptain, yeah, we should just call this guy Chaptain Master. That's what he is. Captain, Chapter Master on a bike. Artisan of War, Gift of Foresight, Adamantium Mantle, Angel's Artifice, and a Combi Melta. Interesting choice, I guess. How does the Combi Melta stack up compared to the Infernal Pistol? Infernal Pistol's 5 points. I guess the Combi Melta is 10 points. So I guess you're paying 5 points for 6 more inch range. I mean, I guess that's an okay cost. I would say that's decent. Maybe I need to magnetize the combi melt to just give myself an option. We then have the Sanguinary Priest, and he is the Chief Apothecary jump pack healer. Is 150 points right now? I thought it was 155. Am I wrong? Did I? I thought in my list I paid 155 points for it. Let me check. Let me get the chapter approved book. What did I pay for it in my list? I think it was... I paid 155. We said it was off by 5? I missed that, sorry. I think I was wrong by 5 points. Let me just double check. Sanguinary Priest is 90 plus 30 so for the jump pack, so he's 120, and then the chapter master upgrade for Chief Apothecary is 35. Yeah, okay, so I guess you're 5 points out here. Okay, cool. I was thinking, god damn it, every time I think I'm going to get 5 more points, I lose them out. Hey Michael, thanks for tuning in, how you doing? I'm thinking about getting a new speeder as well. The Melta missile launcher and fly seems pretty powerful. Yeah, I'm not so sure about the new speeders. I actually do want one as well, but I'm not sure which one I would get yet. Multi-meltas, I feel like you can't go wrong with in this edition. There's, Alright, so then we have a squad of incursors. Large squad of Death Company, and this is 7 chain swords and 3 hammers, which, most people say 4 and 1, but 7 and 3 is fine. Or, I guess 4 and 1 equates to 8 and 2, but 7 and 3 is fine. Sanguinary Guard is a 7-man squad, 4 swords, 3 axes, and we debate this all the time, axes and swords. And some people are feeling axes might actually be coming ahead now. Because as orcs come into the meta, they are going to be T5 as well. So, how come Space Marines have been left behind? When everybody else is going T5, Space Marines are still left behind on T4. And yeah, I mean, whatever, I guess. So axes maybe are coming ahead a little bit. So I like the idea of mixing these squads up. Anyone that's running Sanguinary Guard, doing a bit of both seems good to me. Assault Bolter is in at 120 points on the Inceptors. We're going to math hammer this week. I don't know exactly how well they perform, but let's check out and let's get the full details. I think that in the future, I think we're going to see more people lean towards the Assault Bolters because the plasmas are just too expensive. And I don't think that the extra points you spend on the plasmas are going to really give you that much more damage. Okay, and then, sorry, did I miss? Yep, so we've got Angel's Artifice on this guy, Selfless Healer on this guy. We then have our Librarian, Veil of Time, Null Zone, and Psychic Fortress, and he obviously has the Chief Librarian, Force Sword, and Jump Pack, and Quake Bolts as well. The Primaris Tech Marine coming in at 80 points. An Infiltrator squad, so we've got 1 Infiltrator, 1 Incursor in this list. We have 2 Redemptors, both with macros, onslaughts, rocket pods. We then have the 3 Servitors. We have a Land Speeder with a Multi-Melta. And then we have the Whirlwind with a Castellan launcher. So, yeah, this is pretty good. Hey Jeff, how you doing? Orclore says they can lose their head, stitch them on backwards and keep fighting. Show me a Smurf that can do that. Yeah, I mean, I guess if orcs can do that, then sure, that makes them toughness 5, I guess. Okay. So let me just think of 3 damage weapons for a second. Is that what's the damage on the servitor weapon, on the servo arm? Is it 3 damage as well? I mean, I don't know if it counts because if they're not near the tech marine, they're only going to hit on 6s. So a 3 damage weapon only hits on 6s. I'm not sure we include those as part of our overall calculation, but let me just double check that because I don't run servitors. Server arm is, yes. Oh no, it's not -1 to hit. So they still just hit on weapon skill 5. And they can only make 1 attack with a servo arm, but they only have 1 attack anyway. Well, and I mean, I guess they get some more attacks when they charge and stuff. Okay, so 2 Redemptors, and I've been running 2 Redemptors in my list for a while. 2 Redemptors is pretty useful, especially if it's paired up with some sort of multi-melta firepower. 1 multi-melta is a little bit meh, I guess, because 1 can essentially be swingy, I guess, if you miss a couple of times, but I do like the Servitor pick. I do like an Infiltrator and Incursor squad. I know you love the Death Company, Rezio, and I know you love your Big 10 psychological warfare Death Company. I'm not the hugest fan, but that, you know, it doesn't really matter whether I like it or not. And then we've got our Solid Librarian, the Tech Marine. It's a pity you couldn't make him Master of the Forge, you know that, but I mean, I guess it's probably okay. And then the Sanguinary Priest and the Chapter Master on the bike. So it's pretty cool. It's definitely interesting. If you're gonna include the Eliminators, I don't know. I guess you have the same problem as me. Like, I don't know how you would include the Eliminators without potentially removing the Sanguinary Priest, because he's at 155 points now. He's so expensive, you know. Like, I felt like he was pretty expensive at 100. And, what was he before? 135, 155. He's really sort of pushing himself into the bounds of like. I'm not sure you can include him anymore. I mean, I guess that's what they've done with those, with the plasmas, right? So shooting wise, then the 2 Redemptors is like 370 points. The Landspeeder is another 70. So that gives us like 440 points, and then the Inceptors push us up to like 560 points of shooting. So we have a very good amount of shooting here. We also have 2 Phobos units. So let's go ahead and put some scores down for this. 2 Phobos units, I guess, is going to give you an 8. I'm going to say like it's going to be probably like a 9-5 against Horde lists, because you do have the 2 Redemptors, you do have the Assault Inceptors. I mean, the multi-melt is not going to be relevant against Hordes, but the Primaris Tech Marine does have his Forge Bolter as well, so he'll be shooting out some things. You have a lot of Angelus Bolters here. So yeah, I mean, I think this is probably one of the higher scores we'll see against anti-Horde infantry. Against vehicles and monsters, the Death Company, I guess if they get in, are going to be able to do a lot of work. And I guess the Death Company will probably draw a lot of enemy firepower, right? Because like you said, you're going to use them to Forlorn Fury. They're going to try and get in early. So if that happens, and you can daisy chain them back, and you can put them in Assault Doctrine, and you can give them Chapter Master rerolls, you can probably do a ton of work with the Death Company. So potentially, I'm guessing, like, I think it's probably like a 9 on anti-vehicle monster effectiveness. It's a little bit lacking on like the, you know, just raw multi-melta shots. And if you watch my army, if you watch the live shows, which I do know you do, Rezio, macro plasmas are like the strangest guns for me, right? In turn 1 and 2 of the game, when I roll how many shots these guns make, it's always like a friggin' 1. And then at the end of the game, I always roll a 6 when I really need a 6, because our rolls in the beginning of the game were crap. And we end up winning the game because we get like 6 shots with these plasmas at the end of the game. So I think if you were going to run just 1 Redemptor, you run the risk of getting shit rolls with a plasma for the entire game. So running 2 gives you that sort of security, I guess, or it just gives you the weight of dice, where you're never going to roll with two. You're going to roll 10 times over the game, so you're very unlikely to roll 10 ones at that point, right? But I mean, I do like the Redemptors. I still think even when I roll, you can pay 1 CP to re-roll the number of hits on the plasma, but sometimes when you re-roll a 1, you always get a 1. It's like a bad. There's some sort of mad dice god that doesn't like you re-rolling 1s that makes you get a 1 again. And it's also, do you really want to be burning CP on to re-roll the number of shots? Like, I feel like there's stronger things you can be paying your CP on. But I still like the list. You know, I actually just bought a 3rd Redemptor because I was thinking of running 3 of them, and all 3 of mine have the Macroplasma arms. I mean, 2 of them are magnetized, but it doesn't matter. I just always run the Macroplasmas. I think they've just have more all-round utility. And especially if we're going to be fighting all these toughness 5 orcs, your macroplasmas are just going to be vaporizing orcs left, right, and center, and you're going to get minimum number of shots. So, yeah, I like the list a lot. I think it's a 9 here for anti-monster and vehicle, just because the macroplasmas can swing a little bit. How many 3 damage weapons are we talking? We've got our captain, who's got 2. We've got our death company, who've got 3. That gives us 5. We then have our librarian, who's got 1. That gives us 6. Our tech marine has 1, I believe. Primaris tech marine has his servo arm. I actually don't own a Primaris tech marine. It's one of the models I need to add to my list. I own a regular tech marine, but yeah, Primaris tech marine has an arm. So that gives us 7. The Redemptors basically have 2 pairs, so that puts us up at 11. The Servitors each have a servo arm, so potentially that puts us on 15, but I think those are kind of, I guess we can include them 15, and then our multi-melt is 16. I mean, anything over 10, I'm thinking, is a good number of 3 damage weapons. And then mobility wise, I mean, what is not mobile on this list? The Servitors and the Redemptors, I guess. Redemptors don't really need to be mobile. They just need to make it to the middle of the board by the end of the game. And then they can make out some 8-inch moves and some good charges. So I like this a lot. I think your mobility is like 8-5. And I think your specialization, you have everything here. We have the 3 damage weapons. We have the ability to make the enemy fight last. We have nasty big close combat threats. We have that 550 points of shooting, which I recommend. So I think the specialization is probably have to be like a 9-5. So yeah, I mean, I guess Matt, you were right. You didn't stick around. Reziel has made a lot of lists, though, I'm sure. He seems to always bring in really high points. And I think the way that he runs Death Company probably benefit him. Hey, Milos Pagas, thank you very much for subscribing. I think that the way he runs his Death Company make a lot of sense. Like he's able to daisy chain them, I guess, to give them Assault Doctrine, to give them Chapter Master rerolls. He's also able to combo that with a Whirlwind to make sure that they fight first if they're charging. Potentially not be overwatched, get that sort of 24-inch turn 1 move. I think this list has a lot of weight. And I mean, in some ways, this is very similar to the sort of stuff that I was running. I was running Double Redemptor, and that the Double Redemptor list did win 11 games in a row, right? So, as much as maybe we talk about, I think Double Redemptor works, right? It puts enough rerolls, or it puts enough rolls on those plasma shots that it doesn't. Because although 40k is a dice game, right? Good players make it that the dice are irrelevant, right? Like, I didn't win 12 games in a row because I got lucky dice rolls for 12 games in a row. Like I have updated the win streak thing, so it should actually update today. But yeah, I didn't win 12 games in a row from lucky dice, right? The point of the dice is they're just there as averages, really. Like, good players will find a way to win games and make the dice irrelevant, right? So, yeah, I mean, it's a solid list, and I think that it does just that. It brings the right amount of weight of fire. Personally, right now, where the Melta meta is, I would have liked to see. I'm finding Melta guns really overpowered, I guess, is maybe the only way to explain it, right? Like, it's not like I need you to submit lists with more Melta guns in it to get high scores. I guess what I'm trying to say is that, like, right now where we are, Meltas are just, a lot of people are running them, and they're doing a lot of work in pretty much every game, and they do reliable work. So there is something to be said by, like, you don't have quite as many Melta shots as some of the other people, but I don't, you don't need to conform to my lists to make a good list, or to be winning games, or even winning tournaments, right? Like, I can't really talk. I haven't won any tournaments in 9th edition, so I have my first. I mean, maybe I would have actually been to one if there hadn't been a COVID outbreak, but we do have our first one in September. But yeah, I mean, I think the way that you set that list up is hammers are my melta. Yeah, and I mean, with the quake bolts in there as well, and there's a lot of work that list can do. So I don't think that it's possible really to score much more. I think the highest list ever we had was a tournament winning list that scored like 46. Or I actually think maybe you submitted a list before, Reziel, that scored like 45.5. So yeah, this is right up there as well. This is a solid list, guys. I know earlier in the stream we had some new people come in. If you've never built a list before and you're just starting out and you're wanting to see something strong, then after the stream, I post all these lists into the comment section. So just scroll down and check out Reziel's list. It's a Hammers Army Melta. That would be a good name for a band, yeah. I like that. Okay, let's move on to list number 3 for today. But nice job again. Okay. So list number 3 is from Paul C. Wow, Fury, and you are more up to date with the scoring than I am. Okay. There was a 46.5 in episode 10. What week was episode 10? I actually have no idea. Because I think we are on about episode 25 now. Alright, so Paul C is fairly new to the hobby. And any help would be appreciated. Alright, so this is a battalion starting with 7 CP. And he has a Vindicator Assassin, which we've talked about before. We did a video on Vindicator Assassin, and I think it's one of the better assassins that you can run for Blood Angels. And I mean, there's a few reasons that it's good, I guess. And let me just pull it up so that I'm not saying anything incorrectly, because it's been a little while. I mean, he can hold an objective. He can potentially lookout Sir or counter lookout Sir against some enemies. And saying that, though, now that we've talked about this captain with Phobos armor and eliminators, maybe that's more attractive to me than a Vindicator Assassin. But I mean, Vindicator assassins generally, you could pick any assassin, you could make it work, right? They're generally not bad. And I guess he has the chance to assassinate an enemy character from potentially like 72 inches. So, I mean, that in itself is pretty useful, right? Okay, we then have a captain who has a Gift of Foresight. He has a Hammer of Baal. He has Iron Resolve. He has a Jump Pack and a Storm Shield. And he has the Warlord. Okay, we don't see too many people taking the Hammer of Baal. So, interesting. Hammer of Baal, Iron Resolve. So he's got that Thunder Hammer with Strength 8, hitting on 2s. He's got Iron Resolve, so he's got a 6+ Feel No Pain. He's got an additional wound. He's got Gift of Foresight again. Reroll 1 hit, reroll 1 wound, reroll 1 save every turn. We have a Librarian Dreadnought with Quickening and Wings, which makes total sense. Imperium Sword on the Librarian Dreadnought. If you didn't know, guys, Imperium Sword lets you reroll charges. No one would ever forget about that for 11 games in a row. So that's handy to know. We then have our Sanguinary Priest, and I guess this guy has gone up in some points, so we need to find some points on this list to make it work. And he has Icon of Angels to let the people around him reroll some charges as well. Do you know what? Imperium Sword actually maybe doesn't make a whole heap of sense for the Librarian Dreadnought, because Quickening lets you reroll charges as well. So maybe there's a better play here, like maybe Champion of Humanity, which is the one that makes him +1 to hit and wound characters. Each time this Warlord fights, if there's an agent range of an enemy character, add 1 to the Warlord's attacks, and then add 1 to his hit roll and wound roll against enemy characters. That might be better for this. If we already assume that you're going to get your reroll from Quickening. For troops, we have Assault Intercessors and 2 regular squads of Intercessors, one with auto bolt rifles, one with bolt rifles. I mean, I understand this. I think that some people like to run Intercessors and they think they're good. They're not bad, but Phobos units are better, just in general. Like, they're more survivable, and they can basically, the Infiltrators are really great at preventing the deep strike. I guess the one thing to say would be Frost Shark, thank you for becoming a member, brother. We haven't met before, so if you ever need anything, please drop a message in the chat. But appreciate you becoming a member, especially at the veteran tier. That's very kind of you. Thank you. I actually just got my. It's actually out of shot at the moment, but I was saying on stream last night that I actually just finally got a new camera. I wouldn't have been able to get a new camera if it wasn't from all the support I got from you guys. So we have a new camera. The next thing I need to get is a new capture card, but hopefully all the videos going forward are going to be of higher quality. I've barely had a chance to try out this new camera, but I'm going to try and film this week's video on a new camera, so excited about that. Yeah, so intercessors are fine. The Phobos ones are a little bit more survivable at protecting your backline. When I see like he's got auto bolt rifles and regular bolt rifles, I feel like that means one squad's moving forward and one squad's maybe not. At that point, you're maybe better just taking the stalker bolt rifles and have one squad like hunker down and cover, and try and basically play them defensively and use the -2 damage. And you get additional range on those stalkers, I think 36 inches. So personally, if it was me, I'd try and new players, I always recommend, like, if you don't have a box of Phobos troops, and I guess if you actually go to the Games Workshop website, it's kind of confusing, right? Because like the Phobos units they come in one box, and one box builds both of them. So buy a box of infiltrators, and you can make 5 incursors, and you can actually make 5. I'm sure it'll say somewhere in the description. Yeah. Each kit contains 2 identical frames, which can be built as infiltrators and incursors. So buy the Phobos box, build 5 incursors and 5 infiltrators. Think of the incursors as offensive units, and think of the infiltrators as defensive units. And then I think in the list that we just went through, by Rezio, he had one squad of both. So one squad to help protect your backfield, one squad to maybe deploy in concealed positions and do some charges. And the Phobos, the incursors get an additional attack in close combat. Sorry, they get an additional -1 in close combat from their knives. Found your channel a couple of hours ago. There's so much useful stuff for Blood Angels player, and I'm trying to build my first Blood Angels army right now, so learning a lot from your videos. I am always surprised that people still find the channel, in that we have like 5,700 subscribers. But, welcome. Really nice to have you here. Appreciate the support. We have a Discord and a Facebook group. You can get the links below. I myself am probably a little bit more active in the Discord than I am in Facebook. But you can link your YouTube account to your Discord, and then there's a members only room in the Discord. So you can join us in Discord. There's a members only section. We have tons of, well, not just myself, we have so many brilliant community members that are more than happy every day to talk about rules, to answer questions, to help you build your lists. So yeah, please check that out as well, man. Yeah, I mean, like, I actually probably, myself have probably got a better player from doing this channel. Alright, so for elites, we have Blade Guard veterans. We have 5 of them. They're just basically the default loadout, so they'll be heading center board. We then have a small death company, and it is 3 hammers and 2 power swords. And this death company feels to me like we probably want to drop. I mean, power swords are 5 points per model, so I'd probably drop 2 of the power swords and 1 of the hammers, and then run it as like 2 thunder hammers and 4 bolter and chain swords. You need some cheap. Death Company aren't that survivable, right? They will die pretty quickly when they are targeted. So you need some cheap models. And when I say cheap models, I just mean the naked. So when I say naked, I mean no additional war gear. I don't mean the model's naked. I mean you've paid for no upgrades on that model. So you need like some naked models. Basically just the bolt pistol, the chain swords, and the jump packs. So that when the Death Company start getting shot, you take the naked models off the table. So this Death Company I would tweak a little bit. I'd probably do two hammers and 4 just bolt or chain sword naked guys. We then have a Judicar with Visage of Death, and Visage of Death makes him -1 to hit and remove OBSEC from enemy units within 3. I actually think you're probably stronger using Rites of War over over Visage of Death, but he has already paid for 2 Heroes of the Chapter, so he couldn't do that. So Visage of Death is okay. It removes OBSEC from enemy units within 3. I guess you just have to be very, very clever with your placement on the Judicar. We then have a Redemptor Dreadnought with the Macroplasma and the Onslaught, and this is the strongest way to arm your Redemptor, 100%. We then have I guess this is a crazy big Sangori Guard, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So it's 10 Sangori Guard, 2 fists, 2 axes, 6 swords, and this is actually too big a Sangori Guard for most enemy armies. Against most enemies, you will end up overkilling them and you'll be wasting points on damage. Against maybe something like Death Guard, you won't be wasting the points, but it's very situational. I would rather probably see like an 8-man. I usually recommend Sangori Guard in 7s to 9s in terms of models. And then maybe trying to utilize some of those points elsewhere. We have the Whirlwind with the Castellan Launcher, and then we have the Impulsor with the Shield Dome. And I guess the idea, looking at this list then, either the Impulsor is going to be filled with Blade Guard veterans or Assault Intercessors. Let's see what Paul said. I have a pretty aggressive list with an attempt to keep the fluff. The Blade Guard will run in the Impulsor with the Judicar for midfield objectives. Sangori Priest, Guard, and Smash Captains either Deep Strike or start on the board. Death Company can either Forlorn Fury or Deep Strike with the Descent of the Angels to delete a nasty target. The Vindicator is in as I love the rules and the model. Okay. I don't think you need an Impulsor if your models are going centerboard, right? I run Blade Guards and Centurions, and Blade Guards move 6. Centurions, I better double check that. I'm sure Blade Guards move 6. Centurions move 5, and I put them centerboard in every single game. Blade Guard do move 6. So I take Blade Guard who move 6 and Centurions who move 5, and I put them centerboard every game, and I don't need an Impulsor or a Transport for them. It only takes, in turn 1, like Blade Guard only have heavy bolt pistols. It's an 18-inch range. There's very little chance of them being in range with those pistols anyway in turn 1, so just advance them. So if you pay the advance, then you're moving a minimum of 8 and a maximum of 12. So what would you recommend for heavy units? You mean heavy... What do you mean by heavy units? Heavy support? Or like... I assume you mean heavy support, My Name Legion. So I think you could save the 125 points in the Impulsor. I mean, or put your Assault Intercessors in the Impulsor, because Assault Intercessors have a really nasty habit of dying centerboard or dying out with cover. So I would rather just run your Blade Guard veterans to the middle of the board with the Judicar. I think that will be fine. I actually don't think the enemy are going to really target them too much with shooting because they have storm shields, because you could put them in cover and they could be on a 1-up save. So I think the Impulsor here is probably wasted points. For my heavy support, I'm running Eradicators at the moment. Previously, I was running attack bikes with multi-meltas on them, which are technically are fast attack, but they do kind of fill that heavy support role, right? But point for point, Eradicators are probably your most damaging heavy support. People really like to run Redemptors. I mean, yeah, Thomas, Impulsors seriously are open-topped, so I do not know why they do not have the open-topped rule. That is a very good point. The main efficiency of the Impulsor is the move, get out and shoot, and this best for Hellblasters and a Captain. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's probably true. Impulsors do have that special rule that they're assault vehicles, so you can move, get out, and shoot. But yeah, they should probably just have the open-topped rule as well, considering they are literally open-topped. And then the Whirlwind is the final thing that rounds out this list. So, the thing is, if you drop this Impulsor, you would have enough points to get a Phobos unit in here easily, like maybe a squad of Infiltrators. For being a bit more defensively, you'd be able to bump up this Death Company a little bit. I do feel like you are a little shy on shooting. And maybe do you know what, maybe dropping out the Impulsor for a squad of Eradicators would actually be not a bad call here at all. And also, I don't know if your Blade Guard veteran needs to be 5-man squad, because I've been running Blade Guard veterans as a 4, and I was feeling okay with a 4. So now I'm running them as a 3. So if this was me, I'd drop a Blade Guard veteran, I'd drop an Intercessor squad, I'd pick up one squad of like infiltrators or incursors, I would drop a Sangre Guard as well, and I'd drop the Impulsor. And that definitely gives you enough points to get in a squad of Eradicators, and it definitely gives you enough points to make this, rejig this Death Company. Think of Death Company like this. For every 4 models, or let's say for every 4 models in the Death Company, you need 1 Thunderhammer. Now, I know Rezio just ran like a 7 Chainswords and 3 Hammers, but it just needs to be around that ratio. So you could run like 2 Hammers and 5, or 2 Hammers and 6, but like 3 Hammers and 5 is too much. The Hammer models are like 40 points per model, I think. Yeah, I think it's 40 points per model. You can't. They're too expensive to take the wounds on. You absolutely need to have some of the naked chainsword guys. Interspatial scored 46.5 in week 10. Okay, well, Interspatial. Things may have changed a little bit. I have updated this list since watching your videos. Oh, hey Paul, thanks for tuning in. Well, hopefully I'm making some good suggestions for you. And if you have updated your list, please submit it again. I know as of like just yesterday, all the points costs of stuff changed. So think you may have to make some tweaks to this list anyway, just because points changed. But yeah, I think overall that's probably what I would do, because I do feel like a Redemptor on its own for fire support, or heavy support, as you said, is a little bit. It's not enough, in my opinion. And yeah, I mean, I 100% do not feel that Blade Guard veterans need an Impulsor. I kind of agree with what Adam said, actually. If you want to run an Impulsor, put some sort of good shooting unit in it. Maybe those maybe those Hellblasters with the assault plasmas would actually be good in an Impulsor. Maybe that's what we're going to see, with the crazy nerf to the Inceptors. Maybe we'll see some sort of plays around like Hellblasters with assault plasmas inside Impulsor. And then some people are saying the rule of 2 for Dreadnoughts. Do you think the rule of 2 for Dreadnoughts counts though, Steel Rain, when he has a Librarian Dreadnought, or how do you feel about that? So the rule of 2 is obviously the rule from Star Wars. No, it's not the rule from Star Wars, but it does sound like the rule from Star Wars. And that if you have one Dreadnought, the chances of him getting blown off the table seem to be high. But when you have 2, for some reason, that they seem to survive a little bit better. You think rule of 3, so you don't count Librarian Dreadnought as a Dreadnought. I guess it's never bad when you have 3 Dreadnoughts. Yeah, it makes my current list a little bit tricky, because I wanted to have 2 Redemptors, but now I just have 1. Yeah. Okay, so let's think about doing some score. Rule of 1s on overcharges. Yeah, let's think about doing some scoring for this list then. And I guess if you've made some changes, Paul, maybe you can submit me another list in a little while. Objective holding, you have 3 troop choices, so I guess it's like an 8. I really think like 1 Phobos unit in there would one Phobos unit in there would really push that up to maybe like an 8.5 or even a 9. So yeah, I guess the infiltrators / incursors are very good. Anti-horde infantry, your list is a bit weaker against them. I mean, you've got a bunch of bolter fire here. You've got the 1 Redemptor. I mean, you've got a couple of auto bolt rifles, but I feel like the scoring for anti-horde infantry is like, are you going to ever have to use the wrong units to kill crap units? So like, are you going to have to end up charging your Sangre Guard into some chaff unit that you weren't able to kill with your shooting? And because of that, we go with like an 8 there, because yeah, I feel like there's just maybe not quite enough firepower in this list to clear out chaff units that you might need to clear out. Anti-horde monster effectiveness. And let's have a look at 3 damage weapons in the list. So we would have the Redemptor Dreadnought bringing a couple of 3 damage weapons. You've got 3 hammers here, so that gives us 5. And then Librarian Dreadnought with 1, and the Chapter Master with 1. So about 7 3-damage weapons. So you did say you were kind of a newer player. I feel like 7 3-damage weapons is not going to be enough if you come up against Death Guard. So when we come to specialization, we'll score you down a little bit for that. And I reckon like 10 3-damage weapons is probably like the minimum you want against Death Guard. Remember, Death Guard, all damage is reduced by 1. So if you're fighting Death Guard and the majority of your damage from your list is 2, then you essentially take a 50% nerf on all your damage, which is pretty significant. It makes Death Guard very difficult to deal with. Alright, so anti-monster infantry, you've got like a decent size, you've probably got an overkill Sanguinary Guard squad here. They also have, the Redemptor Macroplasma, 3 Thunderhammers here, Librarian Dreadnought as well, the Captain, so probably anti-monster is probably like an 8-5. I think that just because some of your squads are not quite optimal, right? Like this Death Company is definitely not an optimal loadout. And probably just like the Impulsor to me feels a little bit like wasted points. Maybe these intercessors, like if you're not going to change out to Phobos units, then I would change them out to Stalkers for sure, just because bolt rifles are kind of, they're not going to ever do anything against armor, really. So there's a few smaller problems there, I guess. Mobility wise, I mean, you've got the Impulsor there, so I guess your mobility is probably actually a bit higher than it could be, but I don't think it. You don't need to have a score of 40. You don't need a crazy high score in these lists to be winning games, right? Like I think a few weeks back, someone submitted a list that was basically identical to mine, and I think it scored like 41. So I'm able to win every game with a 41. So, I mean, I guess your mobility is probably like an 8. But I think sometimes you have to make sacrifices. And I think sometimes, I think dropping that Impulsor, sure, maybe puts you down to like a 7-5 mobility or something. But I think it could bring up your anti-horde, it could bring up your anti-vehicle, it could bring up your specialization. So, specialization, I'm guessing you do have that whirlwind in there, which is very useful. You do have the priest in there for revives. You are missing some 3-damage weapons. You do have visage. Do you know what? I forgot to include Visage of Death. You have Visage and Death in there. Let's put an 8-5 on objective holding. And then I guess specialization, I think maybe you're like an 8. You need some more 3-damage weapons. You need some more fire support maybe as well. Maybe it's even a 7-5 in there. So it's a 7-5 or an 8, Paul. But I think you could drop the Impulsor and make that a 7-5 and probably bring up these other 3 by 0.5. So you could have... This list isn't far away from being a 42. Maybe if you dropped out got a unit of Phobos in here as well. And bear in mind, the points costs have just changed today as well. So you probably have to drop one Sanguinary Guard anyway to get enough points to make some changes to your list, because all the Sanguinary Guard have gone up 2 points per model. So probably drop one Sanguinary Guard, rework some of these weapons in the Death Company, maybe even consider dropping one Blade Guard Veteran. I mean, I think 4 Blade Guard Veterans in the Judicar can probably hold the middle pretty effectively. Remember, the Sanguinary Priest can move, advance, and revive, right? So potentially, if he advances, he's moving a minimum of 14 inches. And he revives units within 3. So your Sanguinary Priest could be 17 inches away from them, jump over and bring one of them back to life. I find Blade Guard Veterans, especially if you play Transhuman on them, they're very survivable. Standard rapid fire Hellblasters, you can put in the Impulsor, they'll be up the board in 15-inch range, you will get 4 shots. Just saying, if you take an Impulsor, this is the way to do it. But I still don't like Impulsors. I never actually thought about that. What, why will they get 4 shots? Adam. Hellblasters. They're only rapid fire 1. You can only put... Yeah, why do you think they get 4 shots, I guess? Or you think they can do 4 damage? Oh, you pray that there's a stratagem that lets you shoot them twice or something, is there not? There's a stratagem for Primaris models that lets you shoot, lets you double the number of shots for rapid fire weapons, is that correct? I've never used that stratagem. Actually, maybe not. Use this at the end of the shooting phase. Select one intercessor squad or veteran intercessor squad, and it can shoot again. Maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, maybe I'm making something up. I don't think that's the thing. Maybe it's that rapid fire one that I thought was double the number of shots a rapid fire weapon makes. That must have maybe been the previous edition, I guess. It's sweet with 10 auto bolt gun guys. Yeah, I imagine it would be sweet with 10 auto bolt gun guys. You get 60 shots per turn for a couple of CP. You don't get bolter discipline on plasma either, so you have to use the regular rapid fire rules. That's very true as well. Yeah, so I don't think you would get 4 shots. You would just get 2 per model, and you only get 5 of them in Impulsor. So, okay, so let's. I mean, I think as a new player, Paul, I think it's a pretty good score. Hopefully, we made some suggestions that are going to help you out for your future lists. So, yeah, thanks for the submission, Paul. Appreciate that. All right, Sonorin. What do you think about a list containing a group of speed freaks, like no Blade Guard or something like so? Hey Camille, good afternoon, how you doing? I take it when you mean speed freaks, you mean like Outriders, right? Or just regular attack bikes. Good evening, I would like to have your input on my current 2,000 points for Blood Angels. I like to play a little bit more defensively and keep my options open, as opposed to completely bull rush the enemy. With this list, I like to have a good core of steady advance units, as well as flanking elements being Bikers and Sanguinary Guard, Deep Strike Vanguard veterans to push enemies off objectives if I see a possibility for this. So this sounds a very similar way to the way I play, actually, this list. Alright, 2,000 points in its battalion. And we have a captain on a bike, and he's given me the verbose version of his list. Holy crap. So it's Artisan of War, Gift of Foresight, Adamantium Mantle, Angel's Artificer, Chapter Master, Storm Shield, Thunderhammer. I mean, pretty standard Chapter Master. I actually think he doesn't need the Storm Shield if he has Artificer, Angels... Sorry. Oh, he doesn't... Hold on. Angel's Artifice. Yeah, Angel's Artifice already gives him a 2+ save. I actually kind of think you're better taking like a Meltagon or an Infernal Pistol, but I mean, there's not a huge difference in it. Librarian, Terminator Armor, Veil of Time, Might of Heroes, Unleash Rage, Psychic Fortress. Okay, so yeah, this has been nerfed now, so you cannot take a different power. So you'd have to drop Unleash Rage. In that sense, you might have to drop Tomb of Malkador. And he has also taken Psychic Mastery, so he does get +1 to all his psychic tests. So it would be Veil of Time, Might of Heroes, and Psychic Fortress. And then we have the Sanguinary Priest, who is a selfless healer. He's the Chief Apothecary, and I guess he's also been nerfed, and he now costs 20 points more. Attack bikes, biker jump packs, bike captain, Death Company jump pack, Sanguinary Guard. The only thing walking is the troops. I mean, I feel like lists like that can work, but I don't think they work reliably. I think that we need a good amount. I think we need a balanced list now to win games. I think if we talk about all the lists that I review, I always talk about trying to make them a bit balanced. Okay, we have heavy intercessors who are running the heavy bolt rifles, and I actually don't know off the top of my head what heavy bolt rifles do. I like the Executioner bolt rifles, so let me just double check heavy intercessors. Where are they? Heavy bolt rifles are rapid fire 1. Okay, Yeah, I prefer the Executioner ones here. The Executioner ones are -2 damage. I guess the Rapid Fire one is -1 damage. 36 inch against 42. The thing is, the way I see heavy intercessors is I really see them as a backfield objective holder using like long range firepower. So that's why I prefer the Executioner one. There's no difference in the cost, but heavy bolt rifle is fine, I guess. Incursor squad, I mean, maybe you want to hold the middle with the heavy intercessors. I guess you could do that with the rapid fire version. They do have an assault version as well, but I mean it gets no EP, so I guess there's that. We then have Incursors, Standard Squad, and Infiltrator Standard Squad. So this is actually a really strong, like, this is a lot of points committed to troops here, right? Like, so this is a really strong troop loadout. I guess you'll get a lot of points for his OBSEC, but maybe you will have to give up some points somewhere else. Executioner's bolt rifles are awesome. I wipe out whole squads with them all the time. Whole squads of what do you wipe out, Christian? I do not foresee Blood Angels meta with heavy intercessors anytime soon. I mean, if you think about them just being 20 points more than Incursor squad and they're holding some sort of backfield, here's the thing for Incursors, right? Although you can't deep strike against Incursors, quite often my Incursors will sit for the entire game and can you take 5 of the super long? Yeah, you can. You can take 5 42-inch range guns, and they're all strength 5 -2 damage. So my infiltrators will sit somewhere probably for the whole game and never fire their guns, right? Whereas, like, I guess the difference would be the heavies could be deployed somewhere where they can fire their guns, and if the enemy does want to deep strike in to kill the heavies, it's going to be difficult because they're toughness 5, right? And also, they're not going to be bad if you Auspex scan either, right? Because on Auspex scan, they're going to get hit with 5, strength 5, -2 damage a pop. So, arguably every failed save. So, when you Auspex scan them, surely you're going to kill 1 or 2 of the enemy models. So, it's kind of a trade off. And I feel like they're probably not going to kill them in close combat. And if they do get to attack back, you know, they'll do some damage. So yeah, it's a tough one. I actually don't think heavies are too bad. And I guess, yeah, you're right, they would come in handy shooting toughness 5 orcs. If you had to compare heavy bolt rifle heavy intercessors against stalker bolt rifle intercessors, and I know there's 40 points difference there, but I think every day of the week I'd probably pick the heavies. The additional strength, the additional range, and then the fact that each model has an additional toughness and additional wound means that I feel like a lot more happy about my backfield. But yeah, I mean, I guess we'll see. I bought the Necrom. What was it? The kill team that had the 5 heavies. I've built them, but I haven't painted them yet. So maybe that's coming. We then have 5 Blade Guard veterans, and they are just armed. You know, the pistols, the swords, and the shields. We then have a Redemptor Dreadnought, Macroplasma, Onslaught, and the Fist. Actually, and we have another one that's Fragstorm Heavy Flamer Macroplasma. So this is actually the exact loadout I had when I was running 2 Redemptors. I'd rather the 40 points as a Steel Rain. I mean, fair enough. But the thing is, I suppose I'm comparing them against Infiltrators, really, because I run Infiltrators, I don't run Incursors. My main problem with Incursors is I don't think they survive in the backfield. I've lost too many games to people being able to kill the Incursors in the backfield and like swing victory points against me. We then have 7 Sanguinary Guard, and it's all swords, which is fine. You know, swords are decent. We are seeing axes are seeing a bit of a revivant, or a bit of a comeback, I guess. But I guess the point cost for these guys is 32 points per model now, so that kind of changes this list. There's then 5 Vanguard veterans, all with lightning claws and storm shields, and again, these guys have gone up 2 points per model, so that changes this list a bit. And then we have Outriders, and we have Inceptors, and I'm glad so we are going to make a video on Inceptors this week to find out if these Plasma Inceptors at 180 points now per squad of 3 is worth it. We have also recently made a video on Outriders, and Outriders are actually worse than Vanguard veteran squads with lightning claws and storm shields, and quite a lot worse. The only thing they're better against than the Vanguard veterans are they're better against -1 AP weapons. which is actually strange to me because I guess the Vanguard veterans save on 2, so -1 just puts them on 3+. But I think maybe the test, when we were shooting them with -1 weapons in the math hammer I did a few weeks ago, most of the -1 weapons were probably strength 4 or strength 5. So the additional point of toughness Outriders get sort of make them better against -1 weapons, but against everything else, like AP0 weapons, AP2+ and more, your Vanguard veterans point for point are going to be just as survivable, if not more survivable than your Outriders. And they're also going to be able to do a lot more damage. The Lightning Claw rerolls is huge. That provides so much value. So I think even probably with the 10-point increase that the Vanguard veterans took here, they are still better than the Outriders. So unless Guerrilla Tactics doesn't let you use it in return in the same battle round anymore, or the same turn rather. So you need to wait off the board one turn like you do for Upon Wings of Fire now, Matt. So it's kind of a big nerf. And I guess maybe that you're right. I mean, with the Guerrilla Tactics nerf, does that make heavy intercessors even more interesting? You know, like, bear in mind, because they are Gravis, the heavy intercessors, there's that stratagem you can pay for 1 CP against 1 damage weapons. They get +1 to their save. So if you deploy them into sort of like a cover position where they can see the enemy, so they can shoot the enemy every turn at 42 inches, strength 5 -2 damage. If they get shot, they're on a 2+ save because they're in cover. For 1 CP, you can put them on a 1+ save. They do have toughness 5 and 3 wounds per model. It is kind of a nerf to the Phobos. So yeah, maybe, although you're saying you don't foresee heavy intercessors appearing in the meta, I mean, it does make them a little bit more attractive, I guess, over the Phobos. I mean, there is stratagems where you can perform actions and still shoot as well, right? So, you don't agree with me. Okay, well, I mean, I guess you don't agree with me. It's fine. I obviously don't agree with myself enough because I haven't put heavy intercessors into my list yet, but I am considering them. You may see them. I've only played 1 game since the new points cost, and I guess I'm not even sure that's going to be my next list, right? Like, I know it won, and I know it won kind of convincingly, but I think Andrew misplayed. Like, I don't think Andrew played his best. So I need to get some more games before I can really make a call on what my new list is going to be. I am really annoyed that I just bought that 3rd Redemptor, and now I'm basically going to just be running 1 Redemptor. I'm like, whatever. I did actually have my new tournament list set, but just the points costs have messed everything up, unfortunately. But yeah, okay, so this list by Sorin, I dropped the Outriders. I'd replace them. We are going to look at the Inceptors, but he does have Inceptors and 2 Redemptors, so he does have a good amount of firepower. He's got Blade Guard, he's got very good troop choices, and he's got solid HQ. So overall, I think this is actually a pretty solid list. And yeah, I think you're 100% right, Steel Rain. That is why a lot of Blood Angels players like Incursors. So, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I had some games against Custodes and Death Guard where I ran Incursors and felt like they were really weak against those armies. And maybe that's just those armies are a good counter. John, you're kind of the Mike Tyson of 40k. The inefficient melee of the heavy intercessors may frustrate you. Yeah, I mean, I charged some Sisters of Battle last week with Eradicators who will have the same effect, the same melee as the heavy intercessors, and it was tragic. So I mean, but I did that night. I just rolled bad on my charge rolls all night. Anyway, let's talk. Or I rolled bad on close combat for like an entire turn. So let's talk about scoring on this list. We are going to score him for 9 on OBSEC because it's 2 infiltrate, or it's 2 Phobos and heavies. So I think he can score OBSEC pretty effectively. He also has good clear, 2 Redemptors. One with a Frag Storm, which is actually better than the Storm Bolters against, Horde lists. A Heavy Flamer in there, 2 macros. So I guess like anti-infantry, and also the Plasma Inceptors. Against big enemy armor, though, we've got 7 Sanguinary Guard swords, we've got a bunch of lightning claws, we've got the Dreadnought fists, and then we've got like our Captain's Thunderhammer. So I feel like we're a little bit lighter on monsters here. Maybe like an 8-5. You know, again, Blade Guard are good, but I guess Death Guard, they're kind of weaker. And then Outriders again. I just don't know the place of Outriders. Like, I just don't rate them at all. The video that we talked about where we slated them was pretty accurate. Mobility-wise, I think it's like the same sort of 8 mobility. Like, we've got 1 troop choice that isn't mobile. We've got the 2 Redemptors that are maybe mobile-ish. So I think 8 seems fair. 3 damage weapons. We've got a Thunderhammer here. I do think that could be swapped out for a Meltagun or Inferno Pistol. We've got potentially a Force Sword, so that gives us 2. We then have the 2 Redemptors, both cannons and both fists, so that gives us 6. So just 6 3 damage weapons in this list, and I think that's pretty light. Yeah, because there was no... Yeah, 6 3 damage weapons. I think that's kind of light. And also, there's no Whirlwind here, so no way to counter fight last. We do have Veil of Time, which I guess has been buffed now, but it's not quite as strong as the Whirlwind. And then I guess some changes would need to be made to this list because of the points changes as well. So no Whirlwind, lack of 3 damage weapons, maybe like a 7 on specialization, I think is probably about right. I still like the double patrol with 1 infiltrators and 1 incursors because the flexibility to strategize. Yeah, I mean, I actually like that a lot, Adam. If I had a not... How's Veil of Time been buffed? So Veil of Time has been buffed because of the fight first fight. So basically, if you cast Veil of Time on one of your own units, and the enemy charges you, let's say, in 3 different places across the board. So normally, in the before chapter approved, the enemy would be able to fight with all 3 of those charge units first, then you'd be able to pick. However, now if Veil of Time is on one of your units, and one of them is one of the units that has been charged, the enemy would get to fight with 1 charging unit. Then, because your Veil of Time unit is now essentially a fight first, you would be able to choose your Veil of Time to fight before those other 2 units would be able to fight that charged you, because everything that has essentially fighting first goes in that sort of back and forth. So it's like all the fighting first units going back and forth, then it goes back and forth on like units that didn't charge, starting with a player whose turn it is, and then it goes all the fight last units. I actually don't know off the top of my head. For the fight last, someone in chat will know. For the fight last units, again, you guys are weird. Fight first got nerfed because you can't stack with charging anymore. Yeah, but it's a buff because if the enemy, like, it's essentially like put a fight first on one of you. Yeah, it doesn't stack, but you could put it on your own unit when the enemy charges you, right? Hasn't it always been like that? Technically, yeah, I suppose it has been. So yeah, it hasn't... Veil of Time hasn't been buffed as opposed... See, I haven't been using Veil of Time, but yeah, I guess you would be able to interrupt earlier in the... You could do that before, yeah, you're right. It's a little... I guess I'm just a little bit confused, but yeah, I didn't use Veil of Time defensively before, ever. I mean, I didn't use it, period. But, I mean, the Whirlwind... That's why I was using the Whirlwind for the fight last, because it was stronger than a fight first. So yeah, I mean, yeah, nothing has changed with Veil of Time, so it's probably a 7. But I think that... yeah, I mean, I guess I just rate the Veil of Time lower than the Whirlwind, right? Because the Whirlwind, you can still always fight before it, whereas the Veil of Time is like a situational. Maybe you can fight before it if the enemy doesn't pick the right unit. Does it change anything from the suppression stratagem? Yeah, I mean, it changes the suppression stratagem where, like, if the enemy has charged you now, they're no longer fighting last. They're in that middle pool where you would get to pick one unit, then they would get to pick one unit. But yeah, nothing changed with fail. Sorry, I got confused there. I think the whole fight first, fight middle, fight last section, I probably need to actually go read that again myself. They did a big example for it. I think Mark linked it in the Facebook group. But yeah, I still think the whirlwind is important to have, because it still means you can guarantee a specific unit can fight before the enemy, even if they charged you. And against, the strongest enemy units of certain armies, you absolutely want that. And I think a good example actually is the Nightbringer, or some sort of Necron Catan, right? Because the Necron Catan will charge you, and normally you can only do 3 damage in a phase against the Catan. So being able to make sure that the unit that it charged gets to fight it first and does those 3 damage in essentially the enemy's charge phase makes it super easy to kill it in your turn, right? Because you just do 3 damage in the shooting phase, 3 damage in the charge phase, and it makes the whirlwind. I mean, it's not just good against Catan; it's good against other units as well. But I mean, it's especially good against Catan units that need to be in melee combat to be doing their damage. And usually, the Catan will wipe pretty much anything they charge into. Right? The Nightbringer can get a ridiculous number of attacks, and you can't even use invulnerable saves against the Nightbringer. So he is going to 100% kill things. So being able to fight before he charges you is super strong, right? And I guess, Brian, you're saying that same sort of thing, yeah. They didn't actually make it more confusing, I think. And I think it's kind of clearer now, but yeah, I need to read it one more time. I don't actually know if I read the section that said who fights in the fight last, whose turn does it strong. Who in the fight last phase, who gets to pick which fights first? Is it the charging player's turn, or is it the other player's turn for the fight last section? Russell Dobson, I got destroyed by the Nightbringer, wish I had to fight first. Yeah, I've been destroyed by the Catan before, and I guess the Whirlwind is it's almost a direct counter to them. Okay, so that's Sonoran's list, and that was list number 4 for today, 41.5, so pretty respectable as well. And then list number 5 is by our friend from Russia, and if you're in the chat, man, you need to tell me how you pronounce your name, because I'm not even going to try. Okay, Void Dragon has become a bigger threat in my opinion, with lots of our battle brothers fielding multiple dreads. 110% recommend Whirlwinds. Yeah, I just, when the points changes happened like this week or whatnot, the Whirlwind wasn't even up for debate to come out of my list. Like, I still think that quite a few of our units can die too easily. Like Sanguinary Guard, I do think die. I mean, the Sanguinary Guard, if you think about it, they're not that much more survivable than a regular Marine. And Marines don't exactly have, super survivability. So I think that the ability to just make sure that if someone's going to charge your Sanguinary Guard, you can guarantee, or, well, I guess you can't guarantee now because, or can, yeah, you can guarantee that they would not be able to fight you first, right? Because even if they tried to stack an additional fight first on their charging unit, by putting them on the fight last, you would reduce them down. So yeah, you can guarantee that anybody charging your Sanguinary Guard, you will fight with them first. And I just think that's super strong. I mean, it used to be stronger, but it's still very, very good. Okay, so it would be great if you could consider my list. So we have an Inquisitor today, actually, and he is an Ordo Malus Psyker, and he has Terrify and Castigation. So Ordo Malus is the one that lets you reroll against demons, right? Like, let me double check that. We did look at Inquisitors this week, so I feel like I should remember this. But Ordo Malus, yes, Chaos and Demons, you can reroll the hit and the wound, and he basically just has a basic Inquisitor with a power sword, rerolling hits and wounds against Chaos and Demons. Terrify and Castigation. Terrify is the one that basically lets you do what? Turns off Overwatch, so I guess like he's able to do that, and then Castigation is the one where you can do D3 mortal wounds. And he's also done Psychic Mastery, which I think lets him cast an additional power as well. So he can cast 3 powers, so he can smite, he can do mortal wounds, and he can turn off Overwatch every turn. I think he actually gets a free relic as well with the Arbiter of Emperor's Will. So I don't know why he's not picked a relic, because he would be allowed to pick one for free. Arbiter of the Emperor's Will. If that model is not a named character, you can give him 1 relic. Yeah, so this Inquisitor could actually have a relic for free. Let me think. I was going to say there is a relic that is like a sword, right? So you could replace this power sword with basically the Blade of the Ordo, which means when he's actually attacking those Chaos and Demons, it becomes a flat 3 damage. Or you could give him Black Shroud, where it's -1 to wound for enemies on the wound roll against him. You could also take the Tainted Blade. So yeah, I mean, Inquisitors are pretty interesting. I guess they're pretty interesting in general, I guess, and this Inquisitor isn't bad at all. So we start with an Inquisitor and 65 points. They're kind of cheap, I am actually consider running one in my list. What's the total starting CP for this list? It says 1 CP, but I guess we'll check as we go through it. I doubt he's only starting with 1 CP. Or did you want the starting CP for the previous list? Alright, we have a Chaplain, and I guess it's just a regular Chaplain. So Firstborn, and he has Icon of the Angel. We have the Death Company Captain on the bike, the Chainsword. He is Hero of the Chapter. He has Teeth of Terror and Imperium Sword. So this was the Death Company Captain on the bike I was running. I think the difference was I gave mine a Storm Shield as well, but he still died a lot, so I'm not sure the 10 points for the Storm Shield helps that much. We also have a Tactical Squad. We have an Apothecary, who is the Chief Apothecary. So he's the selfless healer on just a regular Apothecary. We have Gabriel Seth. Is this a Flesh Tearers? Yeah, sorry, okay, I missed that. Flesh Tearers. We have Seth. We have a Librarian, who is the Tomb of Malkador. Null Zone, Might of Heroes. And I guess Unleash Rage cannot be picked anymore. Good morning, Carrie. How are you doing? We then have Company Veterans, and we have 4 with Lightning Claws and Storm Shields, and the Sergeant with the Lightning Claw and Storm Shield as well. Then we have a giant Terminator squad, 430 points of Terminators, wow. So this is all Thunderhammer and Storm Shield, and I think that is potentially a misplay. I would like to... The reason I don't recommend usually doing stuff like this is like, there will be a time in game where these guys get, they get bogged down in the wrong sort of unit, and you'll be overkilling like 1 wound infantry with Thunderhammers. Whereas if you had a few guys with Lightning Claws, you could just mop them up. So, this many Thunderhammers on Terminator Squad, I don't agree with it. I don't like it. I don't actually remember if Terminators can combat squad, can they? I never run Terminators, so yeah, I mean, I guess you can combat squad them into 2 5s if you wanted, but even if you're going to do that, I would still run like a couple Lightning Claw guys in each squad. We then have Vanguard Veterans, Lightning Claws and Storm Shields, one with Chainsword and another one with Lightning Claws. I guess he's just trying to fill out points. And then a giant Vanguard Veteran squad, 9 Lightning Claws and Storm Shields. We have a Devastator squad with Captain with a Combi Plasma, and then a bunch of Multi-Meltas. And yeah, I mean, Devastators compared to Eradicators right now, I feel like the Eradicators are better, but obviously, so he's got drop pods here as well. So the idea is to take the Inquisitor of Ordo Malus that can give the Warlord and Relic for 1 CP. As a result, I have 2 cast and deny who can cancel Overwatch, and he can be placed in the drop pod. We have 2 pods with a HQ and the Bodyguard Veterans, which are hard to kill. So we can only leave on the table a pack of tacticals and the Death Company captain. Well, I mean, you have to deploy at least 1,000 points of your army, right? Like, you have to deploy half of your army. Only hammers get bogged down in hordes. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, right? The hammers can get bogged down in hordes, and yeah, you have to deploy half your army on the table. So you can't just deploy one squad of tactical squads and a Death Company captain and be like, "That's me deployed." Flesh Tearers make good use of drop pods. I'll say that for sure. You know, Seth in the drop pod, he has a pretty nice aura. He gets to attack twice, so he gets like 18 attacks or 16 attacks. It's a lot, I don't remember exactly, but he gets a lot of attacks. So he's in there with his Librarian, his Chaplain, giving them all reroll charges. Potentially the Apothecary could be in there as well. I guess you've got a Devastator squad that could be in there. You've got the Veterans that are probably in there as well. I think this other Vanguard veteran squad doesn't have jump packs, so they're probably in there as well. You're right, the pods don't count for the deployment limit, so do all the units inside the pods not count as well? Is that correct? Again, I actually own a drop pod, but it's still in its box. I'm still backlogged on what I'm building and making, that my drop pods are still in their box. I will get to them at one point. Let's check then. Thanks. Alright, so this is actually kind of valid. It's kind of crazy, but I guess it's kind of valid as well. Yeah, alright, so 1,007 points are inside the drop pod. Oh, and I missed the Inquisitor. So, about 1,100 points in the drop pods. Okay, I mean, here's the way this game will go, right? The opponent will either screen their entire deployment zone and you will be absolutely screwed, and you will have the most horrific game you've ever played. You'll get wiped off the table and you won't kill anything. Or there'll be spaces all over the map. You'll be able to deploy down. You'll be able to make all your charges and you'll absolutely wreck. You'll do so much damage in turn one that the opponent will never be able to recover. And I think there's potentially, that's it. There's two ways this game will go. And I don't know if the game ever goes in the way that you destroy everything against a good player, right? Because, like, if I see your army list and I know that you're filling up all these drop pods with that much stuff, do I not just deploy super defensively and screen my entire deployment zone? You know, like, so I play against Andrew a lot, and Andrew typically out of the last 20 games I've played against Andrew, right? Every single game, all I have in Deep Strike is 5 Death Company or Vanguard veterans. That's it. One squad of 5 guys, and I always use them to attack his backfield objective. He knows that is coming every single game. Maybe sometimes they will do something else, like go into scramblers in a quadrant of the board, but let's say 95% of games, he knows that one squad is coming. And against, like, some of his lists, he will still screen out the whole of his deployment zone, the whole of the backfield, because he knows that if that one squad do get in, and he said it himself last week against the Sisters, he was like, he left a hole, and then the Vanguard veterans dropped down in the hole, and he literally said, like, I need to kill the Vanguard veterans. And I was like, yeah, because the Lightning Claws are just going to make mincemeat of your Sisters of Battle. You know, they're going to wound on 2s, re-rolling all wounds. You have to kill them, and, like, he failed to kill them, and he lost the game. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen with this list, is like a really solid player will screen the whole deployment zone, and they will potentially give up scoring some points early in the game because they know if they screen their deployment zone well, they're going to cause you so many problems. So I think this is the biggest weakness with Flesh Tearers, and I do really love the idea of drop pods with Seth and some characters to buff them, and the veterans with the storm shields. I love this idea. I just don't know how feasible it is in terms of, like, high level competitive play. You do have the option of deploying midfield, so you can sort of pull it off, since you can force them to be defensive against a big army. But if you don't get turn 1, they can totally screen you out. Yeah, so it's such an alpha strike list, and I think it goes two ways. I think you either win the game really, really easily and quickly, or the game is long and drawn out and you're on the back foot. So we'll score, like, I don't really have I don't really have suggestions on how you tweak a list like this, right? Because like I don't play it, but I totally understand how it works, right? I mean, the tweaks I suppose would be that I would mix out some of these Terminators to have some lightning claws. I'd possibly put in, I mean, like 4 damage weapons in the list. You've got the 4 multi-meltas, you've got a Shurub, you've got 10 Thunderhammers here. Seth's Chainsword, if I remember correctly, is 3 damage as well, right? As I said, I actually don't own Seth. He is a model that, you know what, I want to get at some point. Yeah, his Chainsword's 3 damage, I thought so. And he gets a ridiculous number of attacks. So you have a good number of 3 damage weapons. You also have a ton of melee damage. You're maybe a bit shorter on shooting damage than I typically like to run, but Flesh Tearers tend to lean more into the melee than the shooting as well. So it's an interesting list. I think the Inquisitor's pretty interesting as well. The fact that he can turn off the Overwatch, the fact that he can potentially deal out 6 mortal wounds. I guess if you get a super snipe, he could do 9 mortal wounds when he arrives as well from the drop pod. So I think it's a cool list, and you know what, I wouldn't mind running a list like this, but yeah, I just don't have the models, and I do think against top tier players, then I think you lose a lot of the effectiveness of this list if they can just be like, right, we're not going to let you make any of those turn 1 charges that you really want to make, and we're going to use our units really defensively and screen stuff out. So I'm sorry, I'm guessing I'm going to call you Aram because I can't speak Russian. But yes, so Aram, generally the picks you have here make sense, right? Like the Chaplain with the rerolls, the Inquisitor with the Overwatch Deny, the Death Company Captain with the Teeth of Terra is very good at mopping up infantry, Seth, and I guess a Librarian coming out. You might be better now going all Sanguinius's powers because of the nerf to the Tomb of Malkador, so you can't do powers from 2 disciplines. And then I'd probably break the Terminator squad into 2. I mean, you can do that at Combat Squad anyway, but I would get Lightning Claws in here as well. And maybe try and get like an Infernal Pistol or 2 into the other squads, just because that gives you a little bit more flexibility there as well. And then I guess, yeah, you're starting pretty much everything off the board. So, OBSEC-wise, you're pretty light, but hopefully you're going to be contesting the opponent. So I guess OBSEC-wise, you're like 6'5". Anti-Horde Infantry, you don't have a lot of shooting. We agreed that, so it's going to be very situational. I guess like if you can make those turn 1 charges against the targets that you really want to hit, great. Death Company can have Infernal Pistols, yes, but he doesn't have any Death Company in this list. And then Anti-Monster Infantry, like you have a ton of 3 damage weapons in there. You've got so many hammers and stuff. And you've got Seth and you've got the multi-meltas, so I feel like the damage output is pretty good. Mobility is a strange one, right? Because like you're going to be mobile because of the drop pods, but the drop pods could go either way. So we'll say like a 7-5 for that. And then specialization, you know, I guess you don't have any way to turn off enemy fight first. Like you don't have the whirlwind. So yeah, it's a really difficult list for me to look at. I'm going to say like 7 for specialization. So it's like a 38, but I think it goes one of 2 ways. I think it goes really positively or it goes negatively. And that's just the way that list goes, really. Okay, so yeah, I mean, I guess a 38. I'm not sure what people think in the chat of that list, but it is Flesh Tearers tend to run sort of, I was going to say, a single drop pod. And like Seth, Company Champions, maybe even a Chapter Champion with the reroll aura for getting those charges off. And something else in the drop pod makes sense to me. But going double drop pod maybe feels like it's just a little bit too much of an overcommitment. it's a tough one. So yeah, I mean, if anyone's got any more questions about Chapter Approved, let's take a couple of more questions on them, and then let's wrap up for today. And I have messaged Brett earlier actually to ask him to send me over his orc list. So we're playing orcs tomorrow night on the channel. That's at 7:30 UK time, as always. I guess 7:30 Monday night, and we'll be using the list that I ran last week. Which I guess is kind of like my first list with the new points changes. I mean, I'm not super sold on the list being particularly strong. I didn't think it was weak either, but I feel like I want to get a few more games with it, and I think I maybe even want to pick up an Inquisitor myself. I don't know if you guys watched the video on Inquisitors that I did earlier this week, but yeah, I feel like maybe there's a play here right now where, with the nerf to Tomb of Malkador, maybe the Inquisitors actually feel like they're in a pretty good place. So, congratulations to you, Rezio, for list number 1 of the week. I think that was the second or third time you've done that. And, I mean, good job on Matt. I guess notable entry. Very good list as well, I think. And I guess Rezio's list is obviously with the new points costs. Matt's, I think we could get the new points costs, and I think it could be working pretty simple as well. So next week then, we have, as always, 5 lists. And next week is James Fisher, Lagmeister, Ben Fox, Jackson Zod, and John Cooper. And if any of you guys are here and watching and want your list to use the new point scores, or use the new point values, if you guys, and I guess that goes for anyone who's submitted for like 2 weeks ahead as well, like Adam, Benjamin, Paul C, and Sonorin have submitted lists again. Did I? All right. I reviewed a slightly older list from Paul, and I guess Sonorin. All right, so these guys have submitted more lists as well. I mean, that's fine, I guess. Yeah. So if anyone has submitted lists for a few weeks ahead, if you guys want to, if you want to make change, update them to use the new points costs, we can do that as well. BEC, how do you feel about Vindicators? I know they're swingy, but it's toughness 8, 2+ for 140 points, and it's a good distraction card effects. So I own a Vindicator. You need to update your list. Cool. So yeah, update it, Ben, and send me just the same way you always do. Put it. I guess you weren't a member when you submitted lists. Oops. Go ahead and I probably should have actually got to your list earlier, but maybe that's good that we didn't get to it because of the points changes. Go ahead and just submit it the normal way. Like, go into the community tab and just make a new post and just dump your new list in there. And just drop me a message saying like, hey, this is my new list, and I'll update it. Sorry that it's hard actually for me, because like I get so many lists and we look at 5 every week that it's like it's really difficult to, like, when you look at this many lists, they just all sort of merge into like lists and lists and lists. It's very difficult to keep track of where we're at with it. Yeah, so I have a Vindicator, and I think the Vindicator is probably going to be the same as the Redemptor, right? Steel Rain, where like if you're going to run one Vindicator, it's not going to give you enough weight of dice over the course of a game, and it might feel great or it might feel crap. And when I ran one, I felt like it was crap. I ran it in a couple of games and it didn't do much. But then I think I spoke to, it was either Tony or Mark. I feel like it might have been Tony. Tony said that he ran 3 in a game, and without Null Zone, in first turn or something, he just shot all 3 Vindicators at Mortarion and killed them straight away. And I guess that is the swinginess of the Vindicator, right? I mean, it feels less swingy because you have the 3d6 number of shots, right? Whereas like 1d6 per turn as opposed to 3d6 per turn, it's that weight of dice thing. You should do 1 extra day of list reviews. I mean, if you've got a list and you want to submit it, Camille, I think that I was at a point where there was a 10-week backlog on list reviews. Now it's only like 3 or 4 weeks. I mean, it might pick up again. Yeah, it's only like 3 or 4 weeks at the moment. I was going to say it might pick up again when the new points costs and stuff come out. And yeah, I mean, it's just hard for me to find the time, man, because I don't have a huge amount of time and I've got a family and stuff to look after. But I guess let me see how we get on with the current backlog of stuff. And I do try and prioritize member list reviews as well. So if the members queue ever gets more than like 2 or 3 weeks, then I guess non-members will just get bumped down a bit. So yeah, I'm gonna call it for today, guys. But yeah, thank you for watching. Appreciate you guys all hanging out as always. Hopefully we'll see some of you tomorrow night against the Orcs, and I will post up both lists later tonight. So you'll see the stream pop up tomorrow night or tomorrow. So yeah, enjoy the rest of your Sunday, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out. Hopefully we gave some people some good value on their lists. And as always, we'll be here, I'm sure, a few times throughout the week. We need to... what a rotten way to be banished. What got banished? Sorry. Oh, you're welcome, Brian. We are going to be back a few times this week. I have been working on these Sanguinary Guard on stream for a while now. Hopefully we're going to finish them soonish. These guys have been taking me forever. Mortarian, yeah. Yeah, I mean, 3 Vindicators, I guess, 3d6 shot. Like, they are very swingy, right? 3d6 shots gives you potentially 18 shots, and each shot can do 6 damage. So 18 sixes is what? Like 108 wounds. So, yeah, I mean, I guess that's kind of why I recommend with the Redemptors you take 2, which is really strange to me because my current list, because of the points changes, only has 1 Redemptor in it. And last week, my Redemptor did nothing last week. Wound rolls were poor all night, and the number of shots were really poor as well. So, I guess, yeah. Do you know what? I always talk about how I have Sanguinary Guard that have like bad weapon options. Look, I just noticed here we got Sanguinary Guard with Power Fist and Plasma Pistols, 2 of them right next to each other. What a waste of time it was painting those guys because they are never seeing the table. But yeah, so that's why people were asking me, they're like, how come you're working on Sanguinary Guard? Because apparently I'm an idiot and I made a bunch last edition or previous editions that have weapon options that are just useless. Alright, enjoy the rest of your weekend, guys. I will see you, hopefully I'll see a bunch of you tomorrow. And this week I think we're going to dive into Inceptors and try and find out the optimal loadout for them, so you'll know categorically if Plasmas or Assault Bolters are the way forward in the future. So, hope to see you all soon. By the blood are we made. Peace.